Ban list season. It is time. I don't make these videos too often, but this time around, I feel like I have a lot more to say about the ban list because we have a new restriction list being announced next week during this TCG strategy presentation. And I will be streaming it on my Twitch. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you're there to find out all the crazy announcements and, of course, the ban list first before anyone else. And before you do even that, make sure to subscribe. Make sure that you're watching this video knowing with peace in your heart that you are supporting this channel and helping me push to 100K. It would be greatly appreciated. But let's get into some ban list predictions because the ban list, I think, will have some stuff in it, as there's definitely been quite a bit of decks that have been performing up and down here in the Japanese format, and we are talking about the Japanese restriction list here. English tends to differ a little bit, and it's even different as it is right now, so that might also be some, you know, data for the Japanese side to work with. But we're gonna go over the three formats and what I think will be restricted. We're gonna go in order of premium, V premium, and standard because I have the most to say about standard, so we'll leave that for last. So starting off with premium. So premium in Japan is in an interesting state because History Collection just came out and flipped the entire thing over on its head. And there's been some tournaments unofficially, some VGCSs. Haripin, my friend, actually hosted the Tochigi VGCS where he actually uploaded every single round of Swiss and Top Cut on his YouTube, and you can watch those games to get a feel for the early History Collection meta here in Japan. But I think that because it's a brand new format with zero data outside of like these VGCSs, I think there will probably be no hits. I think that honestly, they are not going to touch anything and it's going to just be left as is, because this is what they usually say after like a clan collection comes out. They're like, we just released new product and we need to see what the meta is going to be. So this time there's not going to be any restrictions. And so I think there's not going to be anything, maybe some unrestrictions. I think Zinc could be pretty cool to come back right about now. I feel like he's served his time long enough, so I feel like Zinc returning, or she rather, would be pretty okay. Not because I own a bunch of copies or anything. And I think, generally speaking, we're just gonna probably just like feel it out for a few months before they really restrict anything. There is an Infinite with a Gold Paladin GB8 and the new Din Drain that came out in set 11, which they might want to patch up. Although this Infinite has existed in a different way, it feels like it's way more consistent now, with the only end condition being that you deck yourself out. So I don't know, maybe they'll choose to tap that, and if not, then I guess we'll see. So it'll be interesting to see. But that's all I think for premium. I think overall no changes because it's a brand new format. For English, I don't know what to say. I know that Mega Colony's been kind of tearing it up here and there, but maybe Zinc is he. I can't remember. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I think no changes. I think no changes. In Japan, there's been no events, and we still have full power prisms in Japan, by the way, which you don't in English. So this one's like impossible to predict. I don't play V at all. Zero. I have not played, I think I've not played a single, maybe like 1 or 2 games of V Premium in the entire time that I've lived in Japan. Like I basically played the format a lot before moving here and then never touched it again. So I don't really have much of an opinion. If Percival Aglavale got unrestricted, that'd be kind of cool. Or got, you know, kind of like Sword Me restricted to only work with Bluish Flame Vanguards would be pretty nice. But with V, it's hard to say. It's like not much new cards coming out either. So it's like, now that Steam Maidens are dead, it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. It's just kind of its own thing. But that's all for V. And now we get on to the real meat and potatoes. It's time for standard. So in standard here in Japan, we have a certain deck that basically every single competitive player has a feeling of certainty that it is going to be put to rest. It will be buried in the ground, which is ebisu. Ebisu is a deck that does some pretty egregious things. You can watch the Deluxe, the Vanguard Deluxe last year's VOD, where you can see a lot of ebisu being played. The deck has Gurgit's ability to guard during your opponent's turn, even with PGs, and a lot more. It has the ability to do 5 attacks, going first, grade 3 turn, while setting your opponent's Vanguard to 8k power. It can also set that 8k power, even if you check a defensive OT. Pretty huge. And it has unlimited countercharge. Now you might be thinking, they hit the countercharge. What do you mean it has unlimited countercharge? It's at 1. But that's the crazy thing. the monster box gimmick allows you to find one-ofs. It's crazy. They hit a card that's the best card in the deck to 1, and then unless they damage it, sure, they don't see it. But actually, if they damage it, and then they heal it, they have a card that revives stuff from your drop, so then they see it anyway. It's a complicated deck. It is very, very strong, and in the right hands, it feels borderline unbeatable. And I think that ever since from its introduction, it's been one power level above everything else here, and you should be thankful you don't have it in English, because that deck is insane. It's, in my opinion, the only time that the design team of the D era actually messed up a little bit, and even Jet I would not say is anywhere near this level. Like, this is egregious. So I think Ebisu will die. I think they've seen that the one restriction to Anastasia does nothing, and they, ever since the restriction, Ebisu has won every single WGP. It's been in every winning team. Like, actually every single one. So I think Ebisu is going to be chopped. It is gone. I personally think there are several paths to restricting this deck. One of them is to limit Ebisu herself to 1. Just say you can't Persona Ride and you don't gain soul. That is one way to restrict it. If they can't Persona Ride, they will run out of soul, and they also lose a lot of power, because they can consistently Persona Ride every turn because of the monster box mechanics. Otherwise, they're probably going to get rid of Polaris, which is the card that enables you to do 5 attacks on your going first turn 3 and after that as well. So either they get rid of Polaris entirely, or they do a choice restrict between Polaris, Ebisu, and Anastasia, and they keep Anastasia at 1 while we're at it. I think that Ebisu is going down. I personally think it's not surviving. But for you English players, the point you're very curious about Standard is, what about Gandiva? Gandiva is the one that's performing by far the best and has incredible conversion and has been topping like insanity. What about Gandiva? And I think that Gandiva, if anything is going to happen to it, we're going to see a choice restriction between Gandiva and Best Harvest. I think Best Harvest basically patches up the biggest weaknesses of the deck. Is that if your opponent commits a board and you retire it, normally you're not supposed to gain card draw, because all of Gandiva's card draw comes from the fact that you don't retire anything. But Best Harvest says, if you retire a card in the main phase, draw 1. So there's like very little counterplay to Gandiva because of Best Harvest existing. So I wonder if in Bouchard's database, Gandiva has actually done more damage than what Jet did when it came out, because with the Jet Swirler restriction, they could have restricted it already in December. Just a mere month and a half, or technically 2 months, because it would have gone effective in January. They could have restricted Jet 2 months after it came out with Swirler, chose not to, because they felt that it wasn't as crazy as Ebisu, I guess. But then, they gave another 3 months, and they were like, okay, you've had your time. Jet players start playing other grade 1s, and Jet continued to be a great deck. For Gandiva, I wonder, because Gandiva's been around for only 2 months. It came out in April, we're now in June. This would go live in July, so technically 3 months of Best Harvesting, but I think there's a chance they don't restrict it yet. They might give it another 3 months and then hit it. And some people are saying like, oh, they're gonna hit Stiruguna, like the free like setup card that you Soul Blast for. I want you to pay attention to how Bouchard's been restricting decks in the D era. They never hit parts of the deck itself. They don't hit Upstream Dragon. They don't hit the Crest. They don't hit Obscudate. They don't hit any other of Magnolia Elder's pieces. They hit Rusher. They hit Swirler. They hit Inlet Pulse. They always hit the generics and choice restrict them away from the actual thing. Dark Strain, you could argue, was kind of a part of Ebisu. Oh, not Ebisu, Jesus Christ. The trauma is getting too heavy. Part of Bastion. But that's the Kai says, that's why it's time for change, time for annihilation. But I think that they're not going to hit any of Gandiva's actual parts. They're not going to hit Stiruguna. They're not going to hit Alphacar. I think if they hit it, it's going to be Best Harvest, and I think that's enough for now. I think it's fine to hit Best Harvest because Gandiva is still going to be really good, but it has a weakness, and decks are supposed to have a weakness, right? They hit Combine Rusher and Eva because Eva had really good early game with Combine Rusher. They took that away. Now Eva struggles in the early game, actually. So I think that they want these decks to have a weakness so that players can actually, you know, apply critical thinking and find out how to beat a deck, right? Find its weaknesses. So I think that if we're getting a hit, it's going to be Best Harvest and Gandiva itself, but they might wait another 3 months. It's kind of hard to tell. Then the last one is, there's been some talks in the Japanese community on, is Eva going to get Combined Rusher back? And this mainly comes from the fact that you guys in English still have Combined Rusher in Eva. So I think that it's possible they might be looking at the English data and go like, hey, maybe Combined Rusher doesn't need to go. But the problem is that Combined Rusher being back makes the new Eva a lot stronger. So maybe if they want to sell the new set better, there's a Combined Rusher reprint in it with an alt art, and it works really well with the new Eva. So if they want to sell that new set and make that money, they might unrestrict Combined Rusher. But if they don't, and they go like, okay, we're gonna just hit it in English soon anyway, then chances are it's not coming back. Swirler, I think it's likelier that English will lose Swirler and Jet rather than Japan getting Swirler back in Jet. So I think that's not gonna get also hit either. And yeah, I think that's about it for standard. I don't imagine, like, people are saying like Minerva. No, it's not happening. It's like people saying Willista, deck's barely been out for a month. It's not happening. Like, these decks are definitely not, and they do have weaknesses. That's the most important thing. Gandiva is like, people ask me like, how do I be Gandiva? I'm like, go first rush, pray they don't draw Best Harvest, I guess. You know, so I think for that reason, that's where I'm gonna cut it at my ban list predictions. I think that overall, for standard, it's gonna be the most interesting for me because that's the format I play, basically. Not just the most, but just period. But I think it's gonna be interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. What you think is gonna get hit? Do you think they're gonna do some bigger hits for premium or B, or if they're gonna unrestrict some crazy cards to, you know, shake up the format like they unrestricted Katrina in premium? Zarzan, oh my god, probably not. But let me know your thoughts for standard as well. I know ebisu doesn't exist for you guys in English, but if you know what the deck does, what are your thoughts? You know, are they gonna kill it? And of course, what else you think might get hit or not get hit. And of course, make sure to tune in next week on Tuesday to the actual stream and find out what does get hit as well. But anyway, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.